if you do keyword research every day for 7 days, you should be able to build yourself a decent list of keywords to start targeting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Joined here by Adam Torkildson, founder and president of Tork Media. Far more than just a founder, investor, father, husband. Going to be talking about purpose. Going to be speaking about SEO. Going to be talking about marketing, growth, and quite the story leading into it as well. Adam, I've enjoyed our discussions. I've been looking forward to the recording. Thanks for taking the time to join the podcast here.
Yep, super happy to be here. I appreciate the times we've chatted a bit as well. I love learning more depth about all the people that are in my life, because it's my opinion that it's all about who you know, not necessarily what you know. And so I feel like I know you on a really nice, good level now. So I hope to get a little bit deeper.
Absolutely. I appreciate you saying that as well, too. I find, email follow-ups and Zoom calls, at times I don't feel like I actually have a connection or know or a relationship with whoever I'm on the line with, to be able to add those extra layers makes such a difference. Because like you said, it's all about relationships in this world and how we could support one another, grow through that. So if you only know what's on someone's LinkedIn page or in their email, it's really surface.
Exactly right.
And, on that point, to familiarize the audience a bit more, what is your story? How did you get involved in the world of SEO? And, what path brought you here?
Homeschool was the start of it for me, which started in third grade. My mom, she's kind of crazy. She's a kind of crazy lady. She has a master's degree in education. And there's 8 of us kids, and we were all homeschooled all at the same time. And our homeschool consisted of doing a lot of reading and writing and arithmetic, the 3 R's, as some people say. And I have an affinity for writing and reading. Those are some of my favorite things to do when I was growing up. So I loved the environment of homeschools. My siblings, some of them did not like it at all. They just hated all the writing and they just thought it was terrible. And that's one of my skills. One of my talents is just being able to read and understand and write concisely and clearly. And I learned that through homeschool. So when I went to university, I quickly realized what a huge benefit that was to be able to read and write just at a basic level, let alone by the time I was in university, to me, it felt like high school. Even though I didn't have a high school experience, it's like I'd watched movies like American Pie, for instance. I was like, that must be what high school is like for everybody. And obviously we know that's not true, but my university experience was so easy. My degree was a communications degree. I wasn't like medical or anything, but I didn't buy a single book and didn't have any debt and passed all my tests really, really easily. And I just thought that was like the normal baseline that everybody was able to do when they got to university. We're all amazing writers and talented at all that, which is not true in the slightest. While I was at university, I was able to work at the newspaper, which was a really old school operation. It was still in print. We barely had a website back then. And it was my job to transfer all the written words over to the website, which I did in like 5 minutes per day. And I got paid for 4 hours of work. So that's where I was introduced to the series, The Office. And that is my all-time favorite show of all time. It's just hilarious and amazingly well written and well acted. Just so many good things about The Office. I digress. The university experience was awesome for me because I did meet a lot of people, and that's how I got my first job at SEO.com. right after I graduated. I was literally the third employee at SEO.com here in Utah. And it was, since we're all the guys who were at SEO.com at the time, we were all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sometimes called Mormon. And to us, having a good time did not involve alcohol or late nights or drugs or parties or anything. To us, it was like testing stuff on SEO and seeing how high we could rank stuff for crazy hard keywords. And that that environment was so cool to be in. It was like the wild west of SEO. Plus, we got to be on the cutting edge of all the crazy black hat, gray hat, white hat stuff you can imagine. And that was kind of my foundation in SEO, learning how those things all worked, learning what didn't. And we got to test it on real environments with huge clients. We probably shouldn't have tested it on Dell and Alpha Graphics, but we did. And it was a really awesome, amazing experience. 2 years of my life I spent at SEO.com. I took a kind of a nosedive in life and business right after SEO.com because I was battling an addiction at the time and also had signed a non-compete. And I left SEO.com, took a couple of my clients, they sued me, and thankfully in Utah, this is a right to work state. So if SEO is the only way I have to earn a living to pay for my family and my bills, the courts will side with the employee, even if there's a non-compete in place. So that eventually got thrown out. Years later, I apologized to all those guys because I was in the wrong. And my addiction was just screwing up my thought processes in so many different ways. And it affected my marriage. And I basically got to a point where I hit rock bottom, and I could either go back to working for other people, which was an option. I'd met a lot of great people along the way, and I learned that connections and people and the relationships that I built, those are what matter tremendously in life. And addiction recovery just reiterated that, solidified that, because connection is actually the complete opposite of addiction. And that's what they teach you in the 12-step program. So I came full circle, went through addiction recovery, and round about the same time, I was presented with an opportunity to start acquiring some web properties. Had to borrow some money. I bought my first site in 2013, and I still own it to this day. It still makes money as just a blog where we publish content. And I just scaled that up from one to now we own and operate over 230 different sites in various niches. And we monetize them by selling articles and sponsor posts and guest posts and press releases and all the types of content that exist. That's where my monetization revolves around. And I rely heavily on my journalism and writing background to facilitate that. And I also have a great team of people, some of whom are my kids and my parents and my wife. They all work with me in Tork Media to some degree or another. So that's been a huge blessing. So I get to work from home with my family, and I've put processes and systems in place where I am not the one doing the fulfillment anymore. It's the operations is being handled by people I trust. So that's how Tork Media came to be, and that's kind of where we are today.
So you start the story with homeschool, reading, writing, and really put an emphasis on that. And I went to school for communications. It's amazing to me that things people think they understand and know around communicating, they're really doing at ineffective levels. So you were able to, get into university, fly through the job at the newspaper, and even, watching movies like American Pie, put your focuses while in school into the right places or into things that were actually going to excel you down a career path. You started playing around with SEO, black hat, gray hat, white hat, saw what worked, what didn't work, what you wanted to ethically do. And eventually, working at SEO.com, their employee, were able to be at the forefront of this emerging space, starting your own process, starting your own operation when the time was right, and how to go through your journey to get there, of course, and being able to use that skill set, became a publisher, became a writer, acquiring properties, building properties, over 230 sites, getting the opportunity to work with family, making it sound great at that. I've heard a lot of different variations of that story. I've always found a lot of joy, as well as camaraderie, effectiveness, working with close friends. So you get to work from home and with family. And I imagine many of these 230 sites are on topics that you're passionate about.
I would say no. I am not passionate about most of the topics,
Okay.
but um, it does allow me the freedom to publish about things that I am passionate about when I desire to. So I can use my voice, aka my network, to publish about things that I care deeply about, which is religion and things like the Second Amendment. And I can talk about any kind of political thing I want to because I own the sites. I don't have to care if it's politically correct or not. I can talk about the things that mean a lot to me. And that is amazing to have that level of freedom and openness because I basically have a closed network where I have a voice where people can come and listen to it or not. They have that choice. And so the people who visit my sites are probably going to be conservative, most likely Christian or some form of conservative religion in that area. And those are the kind of people I like to talk to. So that's how I work my passion into the sites.
And how do you make these sites successful? How do you have the content rank? How do you drive traffic? How do you determine what to talk about? What has been the formula for you to allow these sites, these properties, to hit their objectives?
I like to be as efficient as possible with the least amount of work possible. So I've found a couple of marketplaces where you can go acquire sites that are already built and have traffic. And I have my own set of metrics that I look for with new sites that I'm acquiring. And I spend a lot of time and money up front on the acquisition side of things. I spent multiple six figures just buying sites. I've never started a site from scratch. So I'll just be clear about that. Never once. Because the amount of time and money it would take to start something from scratch, as opposed to spending a couple $1,000s on something that's already getting traffic, already making money. To me, the math just didn't make sense to start from scratch. So I found a good marketplace or two that gave me the sites that I cared about buying. And so I had to refine that acquisition strategy over time. I bought a couple of duds and I learned through trial and error which types of sites would work for me and that I could monetize and which ones didn't. And it's a combination of several different types of sites. I could go into much more granular detail if you wanted me to. There's no secret to it though. I just came upon my own list of things that I cared about and just focused my acquisition strategy on that. And now today, I haven't bought a single new site in probably 2 years now, maybe a little less. But now I've got something I like to call the network effect, where I can now approach other publishers who, if I wanted to acquire their site, it would cost me six figures for the one site. Now I just go to them and partner with them and connect them into some of my monetization strategies as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then they allow me to use their sites as well. So we split revenue. So I don't have to acquire sites anymore where I own them. I just now do partnerships with publishers.
And you're able to run your ad placements, your sponsored content
Yep.
through the network. You're able to point at those sites potentially and drive traffic and have that network effect.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to monetize sites. There's so many ways these days. And some of them do include like the banner ads, the typical AdSense type of ads. That's what I would call the bottom of the barrel, though, in terms of monetizing a site. And you have to be careful with all these monetization strategies, because if you overload a site with all of them all at the same time, you can get penalized. And that happened to me on one of my sites, where I just put everything all together all at once on this one site. I thought it was going to be awesome. This site used to be owned by National Geographic, and so it had tons of links and authority, and they had a Wikipedia page about it, and I acquired it for like $1,000. And I just opened the floodgates of monetization on this site, and it got de-indexed within like 3 months. And I was
So
really disappointed about that one.
I can imagine you put the whole plan together, you're ready to go. I want to talk about monetization, but I want to go back to those metrics.
Yeah.
Uh, are we talking about site traffic, bounce rate, time spent, subscriber base? Are we talking about how searchable the site is and some of the SEO uh, value equity that the site owns? What stands out to you the most when you're evaluating a site?
Yeah. My metrics are all almost exclusively around the SEO value. So organic search traffic that it gets, the domain authority that it has, the domain rating that it has, how long it's been around, what kind of content that it does publish. Because I I will not work with sites that publish gambling or casino content or adult content, no matter what. It's just not on the table for me. And so the design of it doesn't matter whatsoever. How much total traffic it gets, I don't care. The number of social media followers it's got, could not care less. But the way that Google looks at a site, that's very important to me.
DA. And
Yep.
then when you acquire a property, given you said not as much these days, probably 2 years since you acquired one, once you're partnering with a site, what type of monetization models uh, are considered premium? You mentioned ads, display banners. Hey, that's kind of at the bottom. Uh, is it, paid membership? Is it around the sponsored content, the native placements, paying for features, video, newsletter blasts? Is it around advertising or subscriber type revenue streams, or what are some other more premium approaches towards it?
The premium sponsored content
Okay.
can make you the most amount of money, but most publishers can't really take advantage of that, because they have to have a lot of things happening for them all at the same time. They have to have a really high domain authority, tons of search traffic, brand name level recognition, and there's only a few hundred or less of those sites in existence. But for most of us, and I would call my sites probably fourth tier in terms of their quality. A top tier site would be like a Forbes or an Inc. or Entrepreneur magazine. Everybody's heard of those in business. And the normal news sites like Fox and CNN. If you land an article on one of those sites, it's just one of those is just worth so much money if you can make that happen. And that's why people pay digital PR folks to help them accomplish that. And I'm connected to a lot of those type of people. So that's sort of the area in which we operate, is if you can land what looks like an actual editorial in a top tier site like that, you can charge a ton of money. And it's like 10 to 20,000 for one article to land something like that. I don't play in that area. Mine are more like, I only work with sites that I guarantee I know they can publish my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I either have to own the site or I have to know the publisher personally before I will add them into my monetization strategy. And it's just a matter of fact that the people I'm going to be working with are not at those premium top tier publications because they don't have that level of control themselves. There's a whole editorial system that's in place, and that's a good thing. And I recognize that as a journalist, even though I was a university level journalist, I still understand that there has to be standards in journalism, and I very much agree with that. And as we get more and more into AI generated things, AI generated deep fake videos, fake people attending Wimbledon, things like that, it's just going to be more and more important for actual real journalistic ethics to play an important part where things are clearly labeled AI, sponsored, editorial. So those labels are very important for me.
I write for the Forbes Agency Council, and the level of editing and removal of links and fact checking and sources, like you said, for the right reasons. And it is difficult here in 2025 to tell what's real and what's not and what's clickbait, even from larger publishers, big box publishers at times. So I envy that ethic of, hey, I have to personally know them. It has to be one of my sites. They've gone through my criteria. I know it's real engagement that's occurring on these platforms, these sites as well. So is this considered, and I don't know if this is a bad word, but is this considered paid links in SEO?
Yeah,
With this,
there
yeah,
is. It is 100%.
okay,
And I would say the amount of paying for links that's going on across the entire ecosystem of digital PR, SEO, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
It's just nobody really talks about it a whole lot, but I know because I see the money that comes in and I know who's paying for it. And I've worked with nearly every single major marketing agency in the United States to some degree or another. I see their name on the invoices being paid, buying links. That's literally what we're doing. And I'm not going to comment on whether that is legal or not. It just is a fact. And that's the area in which so many people participate in. They feel guilty about it, maybe, or some sort of stigma around it, perhaps. But I'm of the opinion that whether you're paying a team at your agency to go out and acquire links organically, quote
yeah.
unquote, you're still paying for links.
I completely agree. I even have similar types of perspectives I apply to paid advertising, organic content, sponsored content. We'll buy placements in financial email newsletters to reach investors for clients who are raising capital. I was taught about 15 years ago around SEO conversations for paid links that it's like steroids. Everyone's doing it. It definitely makes the SEO campaign uh, more juiced and moves, but no one likes to talk about it. So, kind of, similar to what you're saying there. I also I think it's great for the right brand and the right publisher. And if that's what streamlines the conversation and gets the right information to the right audience, it's a good thing. Business is the monetization of value. So it's a matter of where you're publishing it, what content you're getting out. There's a lot more nuance to it, but it's a systemized way to get featured in these publications and for the use of SEO benefit.
100%. Yeah. And I was going to comment around that specifically. Well, yeah, we can get into more of the tactics. Okay, I remember. So, yeah, like you mentioned, buying links is doing SEO on steroids. That's a great analogy. And you can overdo it, just like with steroids.
Yep.
And you can also pay for stuff that doesn't give you any benefit whatsoever. Like it's like buying knockoff steroids.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved in publishing more than like 400,000 articles over the last 15 years. So I've seen what works in a lot of scenarios. I've got a ton of variables and data to look at on my end and the things that I'm helping publish for other people if it's not a site that I personally own. So I would love to get into things to do when you're buying links and things not to do. If we have time enough to do that, I think that would be very helpful to mention some of those things.
So you're saying not to just buy paid links for a low cost from someone overseas who sends you a spreadsheet through your site.
Sounds like you have gotten a few of those emails over the course of the 15 years.
I'd say at times a few a day. What is the right way to go about it? I mean, it's all based on a good SEO strategy, good fundamentals first, and then looking to add these additional supplements.
Right. And supplements again is a great analogy because I'm somebody that spends a lot of time thinking about weightlifting and supplements in general. I'm
Excellent.
actually an investor in a supplement company that's sold on store shelves. So I very much resonate with that analogy. And when you go to the gym and you want to lift weights, you have to have a strategy for what you're trying to accomplish in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just there to see if you can bench more than the guy next to you. That's not a strategy. The strategy is how long can you sustainably continue to improve incrementally over time, become stronger in all the areas of your body because they're all connected. You don't just do the bench press, you don't just do legs. Your body is one big connected unit. So the same level of thought that someone would put into working out, if they're serious, is even more so important when you're talking about the level of detail and thought you should put into your SEO. Because I think of SEO on a site in two pillars. There's just on-site and off-site. And on-site, that's 100% within your control. And that has, I'll just mention really quickly for anyone who's not super familiar with what that means. It's what keywords you use when you're writing your blog posts, what kind of anchor texts you use to do internal linking, what HTML structure you're using when you're laying out your articles and your pages. Are you using H1 tags? Are you using your meta descriptions properly so that that's what shows in the search results or in the AI overview as we get more and more into the LLMs looking at the content? So you can do all your on-site SEO 100% within your control. If you don't do that well and first, then no matter how many links you build, you're not going to get the results you want, which it ultimately is more clients and more sales. It's not necessarily about more organic traffic or more views or less bounce rate, in my opinion.
Right.
I know most marketers probably should be looking at those metrics pretty heavily, but at the end of the day, if you're not getting more revenue from the activities you're doing, then you're doing something wrong. Because that's what drives a business is the revenue.
So on site, it takes a lot of time. You're making it sound like a well organized list, but I just want to, share to viewers, listeners, put in the right keywords. Maybe we could touch on it for a second. The keyword research,
Oh yeah.
determining the level of competition, determining how much traffic's coming from those keywords, actually building out your approach for which keywords that you want to rank on. That alone can require a good amount of time, due diligence, thought, research before you even begin testing it out.
Yeah. I used to volunteer some time with an organization called SCORE. It's funded by the SBA.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mentoring for small business owners, and it's free. And I was their only SEO expert out of 20,000 mentors. And so I got a lot of people coming to me where we would just go over the basics of doing on-site SEO. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's the best way to get people from A to Z who have no background in SEO whatsoever. And I actually found that the easiest way to guide them through that was to have them watch a YouTube video that was about 5 minutes long. Someone put together how to do keyword research on SEMrush. And literally that helped 75% of the folks that I was mentoring get what keyword research is and a basic understanding of how to do it. Because the way that the SEMrush tool is set up, it does help you walk through that a little bit better than some of the other tools. There's a ton of keyword research tools. I really don't care which one people use. They all have pros and cons. But ultimately, you need to be able to see the competition, the search volume, and the the degree of difficulty of any keyword you want to go after, and also look at the intent behind why people are using a particular search. If they're in buying mode, I imagine most keyword research tools can tell users the intent of a search at this point. SEMrush was one of the first, I think, that actually built that into their tool, but I'm not an affiliate for SEMrush or anything. That's the one simplest tool that I found to point people to, because they also have, or they used to have, a 30-day free trial. And if you're just a brand new founder and you haven't done any keyword research and you don't want to spend any money, you want to get it done as fast as possible with like just the basic foundation, there's at least a 7-day free trial on SEMrush. There's a 5-minute YouTube video. And if you do keyword research every day for 7 days, you should be able to build yourself a decent list of keywords to start targeting just by doing those two things.
Excellent advice. Really gives a good lens on what on-site consists of and what needs to be done before you get into off-site. I was taught off-site content marketing is kind of code for off-site. What does a good baseline strategy look like for off-site, and where you could start adding from these additional publisher placements?
You should have a combination of things going on, a combination of activities going on at the same time with your offsite. You should have paid links as part of that strategy. You should have your network of relationships that you already have that tap into, because I guarantee you some of the people in your network will have a podcast or a blog or a website where you can be a guest, and they'll have you on just because you have a relationship, and they'll likely be willing to link back to your site. That's like the lowest hanging fruit I could possibly think of. So that's like your friends and family network. And going out and buying paid links at the same time, that's two strategies right there. The third strategy, I would include some sort of PR/pitching program. There's several tools. Like there used to be one called Haro, Haro. It got bought out by Cision and it became junk. And now Peter Shankman is coming out with a new one. I just got an email from him today because I'm listed as a journalist in his database. Journalists are getting recruited to that right now. So I imagine he's going to open it up for companies soon if he hasn't already. And I can't even remember what it's called. The acronym is SOS, though. Can't remember what it stands for. But Peter Shankman was like the original guy who created a system for pitching journalists who are actually in need of sources for stuff. And that was a pretty sweet little system for a while until it got flooded with spam. And his new system is probably going to be similar, and he promises to filter out 95% of the spam. So we'll see. Either way, those are, I would say, the three minimum tactics you should be doing for offsite is some level of pitching to the media, some level of friends and family outreach, and then some level of paid link building. So when I'm out there looking for paid linking opportunities, and this is one of the things that I look at when I'm acquiring new sites to add to my network, is it should have a minimum of a couple of baseline metrics, a minimum of a domain authority of about 30 and higher, minimum domain rating of about 20 or higher, and a minimum amount of search traffic or organic traffic of about 500-ish or more. The organic search traffic for me isn't as big of a metric that I look at that heavily, because really what we're looking for is sites that will get indexed by Google quickly. And search traffic is rarely an indicator of how quickly you can get your site indexed. It can be to a certain extent, but I've seen sites that get no organic traffic that you can get them indexed fairly quickly. So I have a tool I use to get some of my articles indexed faster than Search Console might. It's called link dexing. I'm not an affiliate of it. I just like it. There are other tools that do the same thing. I think there's a couple of WordPress plugins maybe that could help with faster indexing. But at the end of the day, it is about getting all of these opportunities, whether it's paid, friends and family, or the Hero pitching services, getting those articles indexed is what makes them valuable and visible to Google. So that's really what you should aim for with all your offsite. Get them all indexed as much as possible.
What about launching a podcast, being a guest on a podcast, having your own webinar series, inviting guests, having them share with their audiences, collaborating around articles, collaborating on various types of content, even as extensions of in-person physical events that then get posted in various digital locations, posting on high domain authority sites. I've heard everything from schools and other .edu type sites to social platforms, and having a solid social strategy in the way that content can be shared and linked back to you. What about other avenues as well?
I am not against any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't have a lot of experience with doing most of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would bucket that under content marketing
Okay.
probably.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong about that, but that's in my mind how I categorize that. And I think there's a great place for that within the whole offsite strategy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We see it boosting conversion rate. I call it content marketing, so I tie it back into offsite SEO. But what should be used to measure performance from here? What type of timeline? Some of the initiatives we work on are shorter, a few months. Others are ongoing. But what are the right expectations to set before someone completes their on-site SEO work and begins obtaining links offsite?
Well, once you know what keywords you want to rank for, then you should start doing offsite, whether your on-site stuff is done or not. But as long as you know the keywords, start start doing those offsite strategies as soon as possible. And I've seen as few as 30 total links really moving the needle on getting more organic traffic. And it's very dependent on the competitiveness of the space. But that seems to be about the minimum amount of links you want to build before you should start seeing anything happen, ranking wise, organic traffic wise, and then go from there. But if you can build about 30 links as fast as you possibly can, then you'll be able to start seeing results. So however long that takes, and they all have to be indexed. That's the hard part. You never know how long it's going to take Google to index stuff. But if you focus on your indexing rate, getting that to about 30 indexed articles, you're going to move the needle on stuff.
And from when that 30 takes place, I mean, is it pretty instant after that? 3 months, 6 months, or
Oh,
is it
it's
more?
within days,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Okay. And then it's based on the volume for the keywords to get a better idea of how
Volume,
much traffic you're
competitiveness,
driving,
all that stuff. Yeah.
conversion rate of that traffic.
Yep.
That's a thorough breakdown. I've had different SEO experts on here, but really like the way you laid that out for the audience here. Good refresher for me as well. We work on content marketing campaigns. We're not really involved on the on-site, and hearing about the performance, the results that paid links are producing today, because I know there's been different rules set forth by Google and could say other search engines over the years. So even just the fact that that is still what's moving the needle for these groups. For anybody who's watching right now, who's taking notes, wants to start testing this out for themselves, I look at marketing as a series of tests. What would you recommend for them? What could they test out towards their own growth This could be, a tactic for, link acquisition. This could be around on-site. This could be around the strategy or just around entrepreneurship as a whole.
Let's assume that they've done no activities up to this point on their site or offsite. If somebody can go to the effort of publishing 100 well-researched, authoritative, several hundred word plus articles on their site, and if they can also go to the effort of building 100 of those links with those minimum authority, those are two things that will have instant results once you have accomplished all of that. And that's a great baseline from which to start. And depending on how well you can write and how well you can use AI to help you write, and how committed you are to go out and acquire those links, because you're going to have to pay money to get that volume of links. Some way you'll have to have a budget for that. And I would suspect if you want to get 100 links built, you're going to have to plan for somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000, maybe more, but a total level of commitment to 100 and 100 and a couple $1,000s of expense, you're going to start to see results, and then you can start testing from there.
What about if it's not working? Hey, we've written our articles, we've had paid links placed. It's not getting us the results we're looking for in terms of keyword placements. How do you optimize from there?
I would rely pretty heavily on Search Console for one thing, because you likely have things on the site level that are blocking something around how Google sees the site or how the LLMs see the site, or you've just gone after too competitive of keywords. So those are two really good areas to start testing within. I do not like testing more than two variables at a time. And so reconfiguring your keywords and looking at what Search Console is telling you might have problems with, those are the two biggest areas where you can start testing and seeing improved results within days. And then when you're doing the offsite stuff, if it might be possible to go too fast at that, but I've never really seen that happen. And most of the time it's been you don't do it fast enough. So if you're not getting any results and you've tested Search Console, everything's green, you've tested your keyword strategy, and they rank, they're getting rankings, but you're not continuously improving in your rankings, then that's probably a link building problem. And so then I would probably accelerate on link building instead of pulling back.
What about scaling? I like the idea of accelerating into it, even if the results aren't quite there. And you mentioned some of the keywords may be too competitive. You want to make sure everything's being indexed and showing up properly. What about scale? The brand is now seeing the results and they want more. How do they get more traffic? How do they scale up? Does this include the use of AI? You were talking about LLMs. Any tips, any examples towards scaling?
Typically, it involves hiring, honestly. If you think as a founder you can do any of this stuff by yourself after the first foundational strategies, then you're kidding yourself. You have to have somebody, at least a fractional person, who can help push these things forward and give them a budget with which to do so. That's really the only way to scale, is to build out your teams. And you can do that really inexpensively. I've got buddies who are placing really high level marketing people from overseas, places like South America, for example. They're fractionally like $1,500 a month, but their level of marketing and SEO experience is senior level.
Yeah.
So getting a fractional team member to help move that forward is probably the only way you can scale that up economically, where you know the expense is going to bring you a return on investment.
It's all about the team. Don't take it on yourself. Bring in experts. Do it intelligently. There's ways to bring in people who are brilliant at what they do and for lower costs, as you're mentioning, and continuing to expand. And this is how companies are obtaining market share.
Yep.
It's more than just winning those keywords. It's more than just the individual conversions and finding people with intent and driving them over in mass. They're literally becoming, I don't want to misuse the word disruptor in the space, but certainly taking on more of that market share. So I think this is crucial for business owners in 2025. I think it's the number of small businesses. I think 90% of businesses are SMB. It's instrumental to the success of your digital presence, your traffic, everything you're doing in terms of commerce online. So I appreciate you going into detail here. Again, Adam, I know a lot of this, but I've been taking more notes. I got 2 pages of notes here and things I want to emphasize with my team and our clients. For anyone who's tuned in, where can they go to learn more? And what are some final words you want to leave us here with today as we begin to wrap up?
Torkmedia.com is my company URL. That's TORK, not TORQUE. It's a play on my last name. And we are a media publishing company, first and foremost. And I would love to give anyone who's listening to this an opportunity to publish on any of my personally owned sites. I like to do founder stories on some of my sites. And I'd be happy to accept anybody's founder story. I have a form that people will fill out, and we could probably include that in the podcast episode. It's
Sure.
just a Google form link. And I want to put that out there. And I know I could possibly get slammed with stories, and I hope I do because I love publishing founder stories. So that's call to action number one is please submit your founder story and let me help it get it out there. There's no cost to that. And it'll just give everybody who listens a taste of what it's like to do a paid, what would normally be a paid opportunity, but you can just see kind of how that works if you've never done it before. So it's an easy way to get your feet wet into how some of the advertisers and publishers work doing paid opportunities. I'm quite different than a lot of my colleagues in doing this because uh, I have a very fast turnaround, usually a day when somebody submits something to me. Even though we've got thousands of articles coming in monthly, our turnaround time is just incredibly good because I've built processes and systems and I focused on that. And that's what I would say to anybody else for as a next step is what are your processes and systems that you can put in place to automate and scale this? Think about that for your business. And I'd be happy to walk through that with anybody who needs some consulting around that. I do charge for that, but I've helped a lot of different agencies scale up their client deliverables when it's around SEO and link building. And if you do it right, you can scale that up without increasing your cost of goods too much.
I would highly recommend and encourage everyone to get in touch with Adam, fill out this form, check out Tork Media. I think that's a very warm invitation to be featured, as a founder, to incorporate more of Adam's tactics into your own SEO strategy. And I know agencies are tuned in here as well. That consulting sounds interesting. I want to ask Adam some more questions about that offline. But Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You are a wealth of information and really enjoyed the discussion here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.